I am really excited to be with you guys today because I have the new aluminum, much hyped 2015 Ford F-150. Now, I need to come out and say right away, this is by no means my first time testing and reviewing a Ford F-150. In fact, I have two on my YouTube channel right now, and this is probably my fifth or sixth time spending some time with one. In fact, I drove a SuperCrew four-door XLT, much like this one, way back in 2009, and that one you can find on my channel. Now, that was the 5.4-liter Triton V8, and this is, of course, the modern, updated, twin-turbo 3.5-liter EcoBoost. But more importantly, this is the new 2015 aluminum. Now, if you're here looking for the full-size truck shootout, I need to be honest with you, that's not what I do here on this channel. I do not line up all the full-sizers out there and pick a winner. That's just not what I do. I rate each vehicle based on, its merits, its inherent goodness, and I look for the nuances between the vehicles, of course, but I try and point out what's good and great about each vehicle. And hopefully that finds some relevance for you from an amateur, honest, unbiased perspective. That's hopefully not the scripted corporate shill video you're used to seeing out here on the old interwebs. With that being said, my name is Greg Kavanaugh. This is my amateur car review channel, Gallup Journey Test Drives. Thanks for finding me. I hope you find this video relevant. So please like, subscribe, share, and hopefully this is the F-150 video people watch when they want to know more about it. Please stick around. So there's so much to talk about, you almost got to wonder, where should we start? Well, first of all, let's just talk quickly about the configuration I have here. The F-150 can come in such a myriad of configurations and varieties. It's hard to list all of the features and cover every single thing that's new with the F-150. So if I miss anything, I apologize, but I just can't put a half-an-hour video out on YouTube. I just wouldn't punish you guys in such a way. But nonetheless, I want to point out a couple things. Firstly, if I had my choice, I would have liked to have driven the 2.7-liter EcoBoost. I've heard such great things about that. And I would have liked to have driven their extended cab, which is called Super Cab in Ford speak, with a 6.5-foot bed. I think if I were shopping for a new truck, that's the configuration I'd be looking for. I think that represents a pretty good sweet spot in terms of cargo space for people, bed space for actual truck duties, and fuel economy and power with that 2.7-liter. But nonetheless, that's not what I have here, but that doesn't mean we can't evaluate the truck on some of its inherent values. First of all, I'm a huge fan of aluminum. I'm really excited they went this direction. As a mountain biker, I know the inherent goodness of aluminum, its weight and strength properties, its resiliency, its anti-corrosive properties. Now, I know the fanboys for the trucks are going to come out in droves and say, oh, you need to see what's happened with some rust problems and Ford hoods and so forth. And I admit there probably are some of those issues out there. But the fact that the best-selling pickup truck in America has gone all aluminum, I'm excited for what this represents for the industry, even if this doesn't come out to be perfectly done on the first try. I'm okay with that. Now, in terms of styling, the GMC Sierra was criticized by some people for saying, you know what, it wasn't gutsy enough. It wasn't revolutionary enough in its styling. Some could make that same claim here for the Ford. It's definitely evolutionary and it looks like an F-150. Now, I've complained in the past about this brodozer, butch, macho styling theme that seems to be amplified with each new iteration in styling. And I'm excited that Ford has not fully embraced that. Yes, the grille has gotten bigger, the hood has gotten a little bit higher, but frankly, I think this is a very good looking truck. I'm excited for it. It's classy, it's sleek, it looks modern and up to date. I think they did a great job with it in the stampings, little details that they've put in. It just looks really good. I will say up front, I'm a much bigger fan of the grille I have here, this chrome grille versus the blacked out grille. But yeah, it looks good in that respect. One key idea that I really liked immediately when I got in is I noticed how low the shoulder line here is on the truck, or belt line, I guess you could also call it too. This drop here in the front window is lower, and it makes the truck feel easier to maneuver, easier to see out of. It's easier to see the mirrors. It just really adds to both the function and the styling of the truck. So I have to say, regardless of the configuration, I'm really impressed with that aspect of the F-150. Now, when it comes to the next few points, I need to be explicitly clear. I don't want it to come off in any way as that I'm easily offended or can't take criticism out here on the old interwebs, because that's just not the case. I have a pretty thick skin. But it seems that these few points I've made recently about trucks have received quite a bit of comments, and in my opinion, people often misunderstand what I'm trying to say. So firstly, let me make my first point. Full-size trucks have become huge. I've said it. Some of you like that, you prefer that, you don't have a problem with it. I understand that. Now, in my opinion, on this channel, I do think that's made them less functional and a little hard to use day to day. Point exhibit A, bed height. Okay, now I'm 5'8". I'm no giant, but by no means am I super short either. I'm just below the average for most Americans. And you can see, look how high this bed is, and it's really hard to reach in there and get most things out of the bed. Now, why is that? Well, trucks have gotten taller. It used to be the two-wheel drive trucks sat a little lower than the four-wheel drive trucks. That's not even the case anymore. But you can see just how tall this truck is. Now, if you want to get some reasonable cargo carrying capacity in terms of the depth or the height of the bed rails for the depth of the box, you need to raise these bed rails, the sides here, relative to the bed. It only makes sense. What it does mean, though, is it's become quite high. I was literally talking to the sales guy over at the Ford dealership, and we were looking across the bed at chest level. Something to be said for that. Now, another point I need to make. When it comes to bed and cab configurations, again, this is my opinion, but I think I am having a bit of an issue with how big the cabs have become relative to the size of the beds. Again, I know some of you prefer that. In my opinion, a much smarter configuration is to take away some of that size in the cab so the wheelbase doesn't come absolutely huge. So you can get a very usable 6.5 or possibly even 8-foot bed. If you go look at trucks from 10, 20 years ago, they managed to squeeze an 8-foot bed and a 4-door cab size into a smaller relative wheelbase and overall size. Now, some of you drive these around with no problem, but day to day, I find that these trucks are pretty clumsy when trying to maneuver parking lots and such. So there's something to be said for finding that nice balance between all of those elements. So the Super Cab, I do wish was a true 4-door. It's still that clamshell design. Now they went with a full 180 suicide door, which I think helps a lot. But I know if I were to buy this truck, I wouldn't want to have to open my door every time I want to let my kids get out of the truck. So there's something to be said for them switching like GMC did to the 4-door configuration, even in the extended cab style cab. So there, I've said that. So let's look at the space here, and let's just get it out of the way and say, it's huge. Good buddy of mine, he's well over 6 feet. I think he's 6'7". I can sit behind him in his driving position with absolutely no problem in terms of leg room or knee room. More than enough space here. More importantly, if you're not using this for people, it presents really great lockable, out of the elements storage. Completely flat load floor there. You could slide in a cooler, golf clubs, tools, whatever, with really absolutely no problem there. I really like the way Ford has done the seating arrangement here. The seats fold up and down very easily, and they don't just hinge, they also kind of pivot. And what is really nice is directly underneath here is just this little cargo area, which is pretty much exactly the size you need to hold things like jumper cables and other items you want to keep in the truck, but you want out of the way. And it gives you that storage without in any way compromising this flat load floor storage you get here. So in terms of SuperCrew and space, again, if this is what you need, it works really well. Now, it'd be pretty difficult for me to go through all of the features that Ford has tried to incorporate on these new F-150s to make them more usable, but I do need to point out a few here in the back. First of all, though, one demerit. Did you notice that? Drops like a brick. It's completely unbuffered. It's not a slow release at all. You can, however, get it actually powered right on the fob, or just like you'd have on a SUV powered tailgate. You just hit the button there and it'll open and close. Now, without that feature, I'm not sure why this isn't slow release, because I didn't know it and I opened it the first time, bam! So something to be noted there. Backup cameras right here, super handy for lining up a trailer and so forth. And you can even, there's an LED light there so you can see better as well. Now, when I first saw this online, I thought it was a total gimmick. Now I'm a firm believer. the LED lights in the bed. Now, of course, they're not going to do much here, but I've included a picture of it at night, and I have to say, it's genius. I mean, it works really, really well. You know, as a mountain biker, I often come back late from a bike ride or something, you know, and you want to throw everything in the truck. This is a great way to see what's in there. I mean, so many people would find it useful. Because they're LED, I don't think you have to worry too much about running down the battery on the truck. Even if some rogue person wanted to just be a jerk and come by and turn them on at night. Perhaps they shut off after a certain amount of time, I'm not sure. But I don't think that should be much of an issue. Now, of course, most trucks have ways to secure cargo. Ford has done a great job here as well. There's many attachment points. It was super easy with this cooler. I threw it in there, a couple bungees, no problem. They even include key locks, so you can take them off if you need to, if they're just in the way for other types of cargo you're going to be using. So that is a great management system for cargo. I do have one other demerit I need to point out is, you know, you can get this with the step on the tailgate here. I haven't tested out the new version of that. It's probably pretty good. I do think Ford's bumper step, or excuse me, GM's bumper step is a little bit more elegant of a solution, and I did have kind of a hard time getting in out of this bed to put stuff in there. So I highly recommend, if you can get the step, it's definitely the way to go. Well, it wouldn't be fair to drive and review the F-150 without talking about powertrains. Now, as many of you guys likely know, the 6.2 liter has been dropped as the top dog engine, and now this, the 3.5 liter EcoBoost, is the top dog. And frankly, if you haven't had an experience with the 3.5 EcoBoost, I'll just tell you up front, you're not going to miss the 6.2. The 3.5 liter is an absolute beast. 365 horsepower, 420 pound-feet of torque. It makes so much torque and so much low-end torque, I should say, that the shove it gives you when accelerating this truck is just, it feels unreal. It's just a wave of torque. So I decided that we should get on the highway in order to better see this. So I'll do my best kind of real-world test here of what most people are likely to experience, because, you know, 0 to 60 times aren't really that relevant for all people. However, getting on the highway, passing on a 2-lane, those are the points that often need to be made and need to be checked when driving a truck. So before we get on the highway here, let me just say the speed limit here is 70 miles an hour. So I'll accelerate up to that as best as possible. This is a cloverleaf style on-ramp, so I'm not going to be able to accelerate until I've made most of the turn. I will quickly interject that the new F-150 handles quite well as well on these type of entrance ramps. You know, when you're making that big, wide, sweeping corner, it's actually quite good. You'll notice it doesn't seem to have a lot of inherent body roll. I'm going to cut this guy off a little bit just so I don't have to wait for that. Economy car, Nissan Versa, and here we go. We are currently going 40, and I'll put my foot to the floor. You'll see it threw me back in my seat, and we are already going 75 miles an hour. That was quick. The power there is immense. Now, I will say, of course, the fanboys for the other pickups are going to come out and say, oh, reliability and all this stuff. There's a lot of internet fodder about that, and I can't speak to that as a tester, as a reviewer. I'm not Consumer Reports. I'll just speak to what I experience in terms of this engine. Now, many people argue that the EcoBoost engines, turbocharged engines in general, don't return their EPA fuel economy numbers. And that's true. Other than diesels, it seems like a lot of engines don't. So there's an argument there across the board. But for sure, if you're getting your foot in the boost, you're going to be paying the price at the pump. That's just the way it works. More air in, more fuel burn, more power. The beauty, of course, with turbos is the idea that if you don't have your foot in it when you need it, and you're just cruising like I am now, you return pretty respectable fuel economy. Now, this is 70 mile an hour stretch of highway here, and I'm returning just over 20 miles to the gallon. Now, this is rated at 23 miles to the gallon on the EPA cycle for the highway, so that is 2 to 3 miles per gallon lower than the EPA rating. 19 combined, 17 city. So yeah, I would argue that those people are right. You're not going to see your EPA numbers, but I will also argue that you're not going to get that fuel economy at the 5.0 either, and that's the one that's probably the closest in terms of power. So the 3.5, I think, is best reserved for people who need to tow and haul a lot. Otherwise, it seems like you're kind of paying extra money for that engine and at the pump just to have some power around town when you don't necessarily need it, and the 2.7 or the 5.0 would probably suffice. So let's talk interior. I think they did a great job, other than, I say, one kind of big demerit that I have. There's not really anything soft touch in here besides the steering wheel. And this is a $47,000 vehicle. The plastics are all quite hard, but the styling and ergonomics, it works quite well. It's classy. I think it's gonna look good for years to come. It doesn't seem overwrought like they were trying too hard. I'll admit I like it quite a bit better than the Tundra, and I'll say it kind of ties with the Sierra in terms of styling department and functionality. The center stack works quite well. My Ford Touch sync here is, again, I have no problems with it. People sometimes complain. It syncs right up for me. Love satellite radio. The heating and cooling controls work really well. I like how Ford does it with buttons, so you can actually turn everything on if you want. If you want the air on your feet and coming out of the vents and coming out of the dash, you can turn them all on at once, or just select whatever you want. It really works quite well compared to, say, a knob. This one is pretty loaded with amenities. It's got heated seats. It's got power adjustable pedals and all of those things. You know, it's just backup camera, power sliding glass. Those things do add up into the price for sure. Now, I might argue that the bench is a better use of space for a truck. You know, it allows you to seat 6 versus 5. But the capacity here in the center, of course, is immense. There's tons of room in there. The center here has plenty of plug-ins for everything you need, from charging a 110 straight on the dash versus USB, and even an SD card slot there for plugging in your media. So it really meets all of your connectivity needs as well. And I'll say the stereo is quite good as well. The center of the dash here, the center of the gauges, has a really nice colorful display. It'll display everything from fuel economy and trip information to even off-road information and trailer and towing information. And it's just a really great looking screen, and it's easy to use. So that's something to be said for the update with Ford as well. It's similar to the first one I saw actually on the Fusion quite a few years ago, but it continually is updated. I love the way the odometer kind of rolls up the tenths of the miles and the miles as if it were an analog. I don't know, it's kind of a cool little feature, and I like it. It's quiet in here. It is smooth out here on the open freeway. Cruise control works really well. I just have to say, in terms of functionality, it's really quite good. You got trailer control right here if you opt for the optional trailer control if you're a towing person. Impressive. Nice work, Ford. So it's hard not to talk about price. It's also hard to talk about price because the fact of the matter is trucks have gotten crazy expensive. They are cash cows for their manufacturers, but they're also somewhat expensive to manufacture in terms of how much stuff they're putting into trucks these days. I don't know if you guys have looked, but this is $47,000 as tested. And at the dealership, they had a King Ranch that was 60s. I mean, almost 20 grand more, the price of a second car almost. So you can option these up through the roof. Now at $47,000, that is expensive. I jokingly said to someone, yeah, I traded in my house for this truck. But you're not even getting the optional moonroof and some of these real luxury items you're getting, but you are getting some luxury here. You've got heated seats, you've got a backup camera, you've got sync, My Ford Touch, you've got the upgraded engine, you have the power outlet here on the dash. There's a lot of tech and interesting things going into this truck to get it up to that $47,000 price bracket. But the reality is that's still a ton of money. So can I offer and say this truck is a good value? It's comparable with its competition, and those are all expensive as well. One thing to note, however, is that compared to the GMC Canyon I drove just a couple months ago, that was $36,000, it kind of makes that one look like a bargain. So to summarize, where does the F-150 fall? Well, as I mentioned, I'm not really here to pick a winner. But I will say, based on its merits, does it meet the hype that some people are mentioning? Does it move the needle far enough? Is it full-size truck 2.0? I think I'm going to contend that it's not quite full-size truck 2.0, But I could argue that it seems to be full-size truck maybe 1.5. The aluminum construction, the EcoBoost engines, all the technology that's being packed into it, but really more the subtle things like the LED lights in the box and well thought out things like that are really moving the needle forward for trucks. Maybe not as much as people are hyping it up to do, but I have to say this is a really good truck. If you can afford it, it is definitely worth considering. So a big thanks to the folks over at Gurley Gurley Motor Company of Gallup, New Mexico, oldest Ford dealership in New Mexico. Great guys to work with there. They can barely keep these F-150s on the lot, so I was excited that I got my hands on one. Check out their link in the description. Also, of course, a big thank you to you guys. I appreciate you guys continuing to watch, like, subscribe, share, and of course, comment. Thank you for your words of encouragement. I hope you found this review helpful. See you next time. I want to do one little PS on this video. While I do enjoy making these videos for you guys, and I hope people find them useful, they are hard to get done in my pretty busy schedule as a full-time teacher, full-time dad, and everything else I have going on in life. By no means am I complaining. However, I am looking to hopefully pick up a sponsor to make this a little bit more worth my while. So if you happen to know anybody, company, business that's looking for kind of an innovative advertising opportunity, and what I do here on the interwebs would be applicable to the audience that I have, put them in touch with me. Let's see what we can make happen. I appreciate that. Thanks.